More and more Australians can't afford to make ends meet. Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my evening stein of coffee, and I thought we would have a look at this article from news.com.au, written by James Hall. And it's their survey results that are reflecting on the poor wage growth. Now, I probably in every video refer to this graph, the wage price index forecast from the Reserve Bank of Australia, and a lot of us joke about it. I'd argue it's evidence of their inability to accurately predict the future. I'm sure they'll be right next time. But wages really haven't grown. Cost of living seems to be going up. And looks like more and more people are struggling to make ends meet. And this could be why the retail recession that Australia is apparently in the middle of seems to be growing every day. So, the survey, which they did, reveals an impact of poor wage growth and an increased cost of living. Many of us celebrate when that paycheck hits our account, but for others, it's a source of worry for one all too common reason. Thousands of Australians have revealed how they really feel on payday, and it paints a gloomy picture of the country's economy and soaring cost of living pressures. For years, household expenses have skyrocketed, while at the same time wages have failed to keep up. And I'll bring up this chart here showing the arrears rates in Queensland, Western Australia, Northern Territory, and all of Australia. Look at the red on that chart, guys. 150 days. How stressed would you be if you're in that situation? For years, household expenses have skyrocketed. At the same time, wages have failed to keep up. I've already read that. Getting a pay rise is more difficult today than it has been over the last few decades. And now Aussies across the country say they're not well, or they're now well and truly feeling the pinch. So, particularly those in the construction industry, let me know if small business people, have you been able to increase your wages or increase what you're charging? How's the market out there? Those of you that are employees, workers, are you getting wage increases? Doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it on average. Every 2 years, news.com.au runs its cost of living survey to find out about our readers' biggest household money worries. The results of the most recent survey are in, and news.com.au has kicked off the Money Project in response, revealing the biggest money challenges facing Australian households and giving practical advice on how to get your finances in shape for 2020. Well, this will be interesting to see what practical advice they give. I'm a fan of, I think I watched a lot of Dave Ramsey, just the advice he gives to people, the different methodologies that people use to kick debt, the snowball tactic, go the smallest one, big, and then your bigger debt and build up, or you can attack the one with the highest interest rates and just hit that one. I think the snowball is going to have a greater psychological impact, and you'll just keep going. It's like when you're on a diet and you start losing weight. That impact has a benefit. I'm just noticing my audio slightly spiking in the red there. So there we go. I'll adjust that. As part of the survey, respondents were also asked if they felt they were on struggle street, barely coping, doing okay, or on easy street, based on how they believed they were faring financially. So that's interesting. That's interesting. And I would say, from our own personal experience, it's got more to do with managing your expenses than how much money you've got coming in. Because I know once, business was going well, but we had lots of staff and lots of money coming in, but also lots of money flowing out. And that's a lot of stress, particularly in the construction game when you get insane payment terms. Whereas now we're a much leaner machine, but we've also got less money flowing out, so we're catching a lot more with our bucket that we're running around with. So it's getting a bit of an understanding of the cost-benefit analysis. But that's just something one learns through business. So worryingly, Compared to the previous survey, less people categorize themselves as being on easy street and have instead shifted to I'm doing okay and I'm barely coping. So here we have, well, less people are making ends meet. People are starting to struggle. People are barely coping. In fact, when you ask people how they feel on payday, 37% described a sense of relief, while alarmingly 26% reported feeling worried as they believe their pay was not enough to make ends meet. Meanwhile, just 1% greet payday with celebration and a sense of wild abandon, while 36% said it didn't impact them as they were not living paycheck to paycheck. And that's the difference, guys. You're getting more and more people are starting to live paycheck to paycheck because everything's getting more expensive. If your food gets more expensive, if your petrol gets more expensive, if your rates gets more expensive, if your school fees gets more expensive, if the money you need to save to either rent a place for a bond or a mortgage, all of that goes up. And the common gripe among readers was wage growth failing to keep up with standard household expenditure. I was far better off 10 years ago than I am now because the cost of living is out of control and wages have not moved to help cover the basic increases, one respondent said. Do you think that's accurate, guys? I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people could agree with that statement. My income is just barely covering household expenses. I live from pay to pay, said another. How many people do you think are resorting to afterpay to make ends meet? It's one question where people are using it maybe to take advantage of interest-free, keep their money in the bank to offset a mortgage or to avoid credit cards. But if they're using it to make ends meet, then it's concerning. The cost of living keeps increasing while my wage does not, another respondent said. I can't even afford to take out a mortgage for a house as I won't have enough to make the payments, and house prices are always on the rise. Well, not always, but yeah. That's the thing. If you get an insane mortgage, payments are going to be much higher than rent. Wages have remained stagnant and the cost of goods like petrol and houses don't match our income, said another. Therefore, we have to be very vigilant when it comes to spending, and that affects the economy in the long run. Exactly. Exactly. I'll bring up this chart here where we're looking at housing affordability, guys. Look how much it's gone up just to 2012. I need to get some latest figures, but I'm a little apprehensive to get later figures because they may depress me a bit too much, to be honest. It's going to be tough. So a sense of relief, and blue is 2014, 5 years ago, and orange is 2019. So a sense of relief dropped, then went up again, so it's 37%. A sense of wild abandon, let's go out, that's dropped. Maybe people are getting older, or maybe maybe the MGTOW movement is growing and we're seeing that there. Maybe we're seeing that there. Nothing, I don't live paycheck to paycheck. And look, that's, you know, it was steady, and then it's dropped. So that's a warning sign. Here's the big one. From 18% to 26%. Worried because it's not enough to make ends meet. Nearly a quarter, or over a quarter of respondents. With the Reserve Bank tipping wage growth to sink just 2.2% through to mid-2022, as the price of childcare, healthcare, and general bills surge, it's little wonder a large proportion of the country is struggling to make ends meet. Prominent economist Stephen Kakolas says low wage growth is the leading factor contributing to the anxiety of household budgets. 5 or 10 years ago, when wage growth was 3.5, maybe 4%, the cost of living pressures were more easily absorbed because you were getting a decent pay rise, the former advisor to Prime Minister Julia Gillard told news.com.au. But isn't he the same guy that thinks bushfires will be good for the economy? And someone left a really good comment there on the previous video when I mentioned that. If you think bushfires are good for the economy, just go outside, smash up your house, and then go, you know, get your insurance and do the repairs, and then look at where you're sitting at the end of the process. Just look if you're better off financially. You know, it's fantastic. It really explains it quite well, doesn't it? But the gap between inflation, cost of living, and incomes has been closing dramatically. So here we have, what's this data? This is how much people are earning. So less than 45 grand, and that's gone down to 2019. Between 45 to 60 has also gone down. 60 to 80,000, it's gone down. Has any of these gone up? 80 to 100. It went up, and now it's the same as it was in 2011. 100 to 150 has gone up, which is good. 150 to 200 has gone up, and more than 200 has gone up. And then I'd prefer not to say pension or welfare recipients. So, and RBA, Governor Philip Lowe, has been vocal in his wish for wage growth to at least have a 3 in front of it. Why? Just saying it and reducing the cash rate isn't going to make it happen. Why are people going to invest in businesses? Why? They'll just put it in the housing. People will work a wage. They'll negative gear it. Put it in the housing. Why are they going to invest in businesses to employ more people? What's going to attract business to Australia? Cutting the cash rate? I doubt it. Need to think smarter. I think Australia's been pretty bloody lucky, actually. I think as a nation, we've been a little spoiled. We've been a little spoiled. We've had it pretty good with just China hoovering up all our resources. We can buy cheap crap from there. And our economy has gotten to the point now where we are simply, and I will bring up one of my favorite websites, the Observatory of Economic Complexity. We've gotten to the point where we're 59th in the world. But then I'll also bring up the Atlas, the Harvard Atlas, and 59th in the world, I'm referring to our economic complexity. And this is tied to our primitive economy. We're not manufacturing advanced things. Would it even be possible to get a CPU manufactured in this nation cost effectively, or even at all? Would we even have the technology to compete? Apparently we're an innovation nation. Here's Atlas. If you read through this, 93rd in the world of 133 nations. The strategies that they're telling us to do, and I'll go through this in greater detail, but the growth opportunities, they're telling us to pick colonial type of strategies for our nation. But I'm sure just increasing or reducing the cash rate to insanely low levels, which affects all of our confidence in the economy, I'm sure that'll drive up wages. Has to, doesn't it? Yeah, because the RBA, they're right on the money. And I swear I will make this into a cup. I will. I'm just flat out at the moment with projects, guys. It's a bit busy the last week, you know, a few rush jobs. We had we went to the southern Downs, Scenic Rim, and there was a lot of road closures because of the rain. So the low figure combined with last year's property downturn has put a halt on Aussies splashing their cash, and the national economy is struggling as a result. For some time now, households have been gradually adjusting their spending to the slower trend rate of income growth, he told an economics committee in Canberra earlier this month. Faced with the reality of slow growth in wages and falling house prices, many households scaled back their spending and adjusted their finances. Well, here's a question. What would encourage you to spend? What drastic change to our economy or drastic move would encourage you as a consumer to invest or spend or purchase? Let us know your suggestions in the comments below. I mean, if the government was setting up a new special economic region with different laws and legislations that gave businesses a competitive advantage, and there was a way for average citizens to invest in that and reap a reward, I'd be investing in that. I'd be looking at finding a way to put my super in that, something a bit innovative. Not just the same old. Maybe. The survey also found there'd been an increase in the number of mid to high income earners responding compared to the last time the survey was run. There are now more people on average who earn over 100 grand than there were 2 years ago. The amount of female respondents with salaries over 100,000 also increased from 16% to 20%. However, of course, there's always a however, isn't there? The amount of male respondents with salaries over 100 grand increased from 37% to 41%. Oh, it's that earnings gap right there. It's that earnings gap. But the disparity in the salary gap continues to increase with the proportion of males. Oh, who cares? Okay? Who cares? Because it's a earnings gap, guys. If you don't believe that, you're probably not a hard worker, to be honest. Anyone who believes that there's a legitimate, gap in wages between men and women because, it's unfair or unequal, I would say they're part of the 80% that are dragged along or aren't producing as much as the 20%. That's my argument. And I would definitely consider a lot of politicians in that. A lot of Labour politicians too. So what do you do? With wage growth tipped by the RBA to stay still through to 2022, recruitment expert Michael Berger said Australians may need to be proactive in their pursuit of a pay rise. Individuals often need to look after themselves and take the lead, he told news.com.au. Mr. Berger, founder and director of Brisbane-based engineering and construction recruitment firm Talent Blueprint, said Australians should remain level-headed when approaching an employer for a pay rise. You need to make a business case to your employer or your manager about why you deserve a pay rise, and emotions must be left at the door, he said. Don't go with reasons such as my colleague got a pay rise and I want one, or I deserve to be on the same. Those sorts of things relate to emotions and can lead to disaster. Maybe there's a reason why we're seeing an earnings gap. Check the calendar for an upcoming work anniversary, or look ahead to the end of the financial year and book in a time to speak privately with your manager. Prepare by jotting down some of your performance indicators and link those to any recent company-wide revenue upgrades. Timing works both ways, Mr. Berger said. Avoid asking when there's a notable market or industry downturn, for example. The last thing to consider is the prickly issue of how much money to ask for. The recruitment expert advises those looking for an income bump to do their research and establish an amount that is fair and competitive for the role. Then ask for a little bit more on the assumption it will be negotiated down. Once you've got the facts in order, the process of conducting the meeting has got to be strictly business. Book some time with your manager. I'd advise to get a little run sheet and deliver the facts, followed by the negotiation. You've got to leave emotion out of it, and it's got to be a positive discussion. So I'll let you go through these pay rise tips. So is a rival offer worthwhile? That shows you're disloyal, doesn't it? Some disgruntled employees are seduced into taking the aggressive approach of inviting an offer from a rival workplace and giving their boss the ultimatum to pay up or say goodbye. Mr. Berger says this can be a common and successful strategy in some cutthroat corporate industries, but for mainstream roles, he doesn't like the sound of that at all. It just leaves you with no wiggle room, he said. If you actually had an offer and you go back to your employer and say, company B has offered me 150 and I'm on 120 with you, you don't match this, I'm going to leave. What's the atmosphere going to be like moving forward with the company? Yeah, exactly. Yes, they may relent and play you close to that amount, but in the next company downturn or the next time the industry takes a turn and they need to offload staff, guess who they'll be looking at? You may also not see another pay rise for the next 3 or 4 years. So there you go, an interesting piece by James. And I think the biggest and most concerning takeaway is the amount of people that aren't making ends meet. And how that's grown by nearly 10%, 8% in just 5 years. Or 8% as a total. It's nearly gone up 50%. Or 75%. What do you think, guys? Are you feeling a sense of relief every time your pay comes in? Or do you a sense of wild abandon, just go out and piss your money away? Or you're not living paycheck to paycheck, you don't worry about it? Or are you in small business and You're not living paycheck to paycheck, but it is a sense of relief when that money finally comes in after those insane terms that some people put on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, guys. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to help us produce more content, you can join the channel here on YouTube, sign up to Patreon. You can use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, or Independent Reserve. You could also purchase our merch from HeiseSays, or use PayPal to contribute that way. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.